Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today. I have very much been looking forward to this conversation. I'm going to get started here in just a couple minutes once we've seen the number of attendees plateau. I do want to cover a couple of housekeeping things first before we get started. This call is being recorded. Anybody who is registered for this event will get a follow-up email with a copy of the call recording, the PowerPoint presentation that we're going to cover today, and any of the resources and documents that I discuss over the course of the conversation, we will give everybody access to, so you can take what I'm going to cover today, adapt it, and implement it for your specific firm. So all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I see some new and familiar faces, but for those of you who I have not met yet, my name is Kate Guillen. I'm the founder of Simplicity Ops. I have been working in the investment management industry since 2013, supporting financial advisors in an admin and ops capacity. Worked at a broker dealer as well as an RIA, and then started this business as a way to help investment advisory practices grow and scale their businesses by delivering an exceptional customer service experience. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What I've put together is the framework that me and my team follow to help design and build an exceptional customer service experience, and how to be able to leverage technology to do that at scale. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody. We have done this now 170 some odd times and achieved tremendous success in helping investment advisory practices of all sizes grow, again, by delivering an amazing client service experience and help them achieve tremendous goals, whether that's doubling AUM, tripling, quadrupling, seven timesing the size of their practice, increasing profitability, growing a team, leaving their TAMP, bringing portfolio management in-house, going fully independent. Like, this is the key to success, is by leveraging technology to create a very scalable way of running your firm. And so this is going to act as kind of our agenda today, starting with the importance of data integrity, this idea of using your CRM as the hub of your business, how you can leverage the CRM to deliver a proactive client service experience, and the importance of integrating things like workflows, automation, and some other very simple key pieces of technology to elevate your customer service experience and really empower those of you on the front lines delivering the client service experience to free up capacity, create clarity, and really help you pour into the most important relationships in your lives. And so, first and foremost, I want to start with the number one most important thing that needs to happen when you go to design and implement this system is the data. Okay. And I get people that roll their eyes at me all the time, like, oh, yeah, I just want to get into workflows. I want to get into automation. And I understand that is the end goal here. But workflows, integration, automation are far less effective as long as the data is disorganized. Your CRM in its simplest form is just a database. And so the data really is the foundation for this entire operating system. If you think about this like building a house, if you put the frame and a roof on a faulty foundation, ultimately that structure is going to collapse. The same thing is true over time with this operating system that I'm going to explain to you. And so the first thing you need to do is figure out how your contacts need to be structured so that you can organize them and create a very clear framework for managing the data. And so whether you're a Redtail or a Wealthbox user, the hierarchy, if you will, looks somewhat similar. In Redtail, we call it statuses, Wealthbox, we call it types, but follow my logic here. We need to create a hierarchy that tell us who contacts are so that we can group, contacts together, target specific segments of our contacts, whether it's for compliance or marketing purposes or RMD emails or whatever it might be. I want to have a very clear hierarchy or framework in place that tell me how contacts need to be organized within my database. Okay, generally it looks something like this. I want to take this a step further and define exactly what these fields mean to give you a little bit of clarity. At the highest level, all contacts are going to have a status or a type depending on what CRM you use. And generally, the contacts in your database look something like this. They're businesses, they're clients, they're centers of influence, they're their prospects. Okay. From a reporting standpoint, think about this as your opportunity to be able to cast the largest net and group the largest number of contacts together. Okay. This is all contacts or all clients, all prospects. Want to keep that list of types or statuses limited to reduce confusion, to reduce ambiguousness, to just keep it really clear and really well organized. So I always say you want to have 10 or less statuses or types at the highest level in the database. Where you can get a little bit more creative is by assigning a category or a custom, which is a custom field in Wealthbox. And so this is how you can further rank or classify contacts within their status or type. Okay. This is how you group them together by like tier 1 clients over tier 4 clients, or tax planning clients over retirement plan clients, or hot prospects versus cold prospects. You get what I'm getting at here. This is how you can further filter down that report and target specific segments of contacts. Once you get really clear on who these contacts are within your database, it's really important to take this to the next level and document your style guide. And so this is one of the resources that we'll provide to you in the follow-up email, but a style guide is essentially the glossary to your database. This is how you apply a definition to each one of those fields. Okay, so a business is a contact that's a place of business. A client is a revenue generating relationship, a center of influence. You guys can see what I'm getting here. But the goal is to make this completely foolproof. Whether you're operating independently or on a team, it is important that the data remains consistent. And there is no other way to ensure that consistency until you take it to this level and really define what each one of these fields mean. All right. I've included a couple of other examples here of how we've seen people do a really clean and consistent job of articulating who these contacts are and how your firm defines them. Sure, they're gonna look a little bit different for everybody depending on the type of business that you run, but I think this gives you at least a baseline that you can adapt and build off of to create a style guide that is reflective of how you communicate about these contacts in your database. Once you have a clear idea of, the hierarchy of your contacts, you've defined what contacts mean what. Now we need to run an assessment and run an audit to figure out where are there gaps and how can we run an audit to see where there are gaps in the contact records. Okay, and so here the mock, this is just an example of when we start an engagement with all of our clients, we do a deep dive into the organization of their data to flush out any gaps or holes in their processes. And this would be a good example of where there's gaps at the contact level. Okay, so there's 500, let's say it's a 2000 contact database. There's 500 contacts that don't have a category or a custom field. There's 200 that are floating around in the abyss of the database because they're not specified. They don't have a status or a type. We're not using writing advisor or servicing advisor. We're not capturing where, new contacts are coming from. We're missing some important information around employer and job title. I find that's often missed. From a regulatory, requirement standpoint, it's nice to have from a compliance standpoint, from an administrative standpoint, it's nice to have that information within the CRM for, opening new accounts or establishing new accounts. Obviously, having tax ID, contact information. Again, we need to design a system that's going to obtain good, clean information to ensure there's not gaps in the contact records, and then create a process for maintaining it ongoingly to ensure that your CRM is the source of truth for managing these client relationships. And that starts with good, clean, accurate, trustworthy information at the contact record. Okay, once we have that organized and cleaned up, and this is just a matter of running a series of reports, scrubbing contacts, uploading them to Wealthbox makes it very simple to scrub contact records. And then designing systems to ensure that we have a way of capturing this information and maintaining it. And so here's some examples of features within the CRM that are oftentimes underutilized. So let's go back to my mock-up here. This is a database where they're using it as a task management system, but they're not adhering to best practices. They've got a bunch of past due activities or tasks. They have workflows, but they're only using a handful of them. We've got some reports. We're definitely not using any templates. You guys can see what I'm getting at here, but I want to show you how to fix these gaps and create processes and just better utilize the tools that you have within your CRM. And so this is where I come to the idea of leveraging your CRM as the hub of your business. I think this image really brings to life this idea. And what I'm trying to create here is like the one-stop shop for managing your business. Couple of reasons. One, to cut down on all of the unnecessary spreadsheets or external places or tabs that you have open in a day, which is going to help you operate more efficiently and create capacity so that you can start, pouring more deeply into your clients, thinking about how to elevate your client service experience, which is going to really help you grow your practice organically. So when I think about this, I think about Redtail or Wealthbox as being your one-stop shop for contacts, tasks, your calendar, your sales pipeline, notes. Okay. One, to create efficiency. Two, to be able to run more robust reports. By all of this information living in a single place, now you have access to this data in one place. I just find that that is incredibly helpful for making data-based decisions because the data all lives in a centralized hub. And so I love the CRM as a contact management system more so than just, statuses and categories and keywords and user defined fields. But like, I really want to be able to capture and create in the CRM a family tree, a professional network. I want to see who's related to who and how. I want to see who's working with who and find commonalities and create, deeper connections with these folks. I want to capture things like hobbies and interests and dogs' names and military affiliation or political affiliation. Like, what do we talk about with them? What do we not talk about with them? So that I can have a meaningful interaction with our clients and with our prospects because their entire life story lives, at one click at my fingertips so that I can connect with them in a meaningful way. I'm thinking about like notes, calendaring, tasks. I really like using the CRM as a way to capture a historical timeline of everything that has transpired in our client relationships. Which means, I mean, obviously for compliance reasons, we need to capture client correspondence, right? So that's like note documentation, meetings, phone calls, appointments. But I also like using it as a task management system so that all client service requests live in the CRM linked to the contact record. So the next time I pull up that contact record, I can see that historical timeline of everything that has been done, whether it's by myself or my team, in one place. I like the CRM as a calendaring tool. Okay, they integrate nicely with the G Suite. They also integrate nicely with Outlook. But again, being able to link it to a contact record so that we can see in one place and cut down on back and forths between one system for managing contacts and notes and another system for managing calendar. I find that this creates a lot of efficiency if we can integrate our Outlook calendar with our CRM calendar so that we have that one-stop shop for seeing what's going on. And same thing about your sales pipeline. New revenue opportunities are obviously vital to the future success of your business. I want to be able to capture new revenue opportunities, whether it's a brand new prospect off the street or new revenue opportunity for an existing relationship in your CRM. Both Redtail and Wealthbox have an awesome way of capturing new opportunities in the CRM, being able to track where they've come from, where are we at in the process, who's responsible for bringing in the new business, revenue potential. Anyway, you get what I'm getting at here. I want to have this again in the CRM so I can use the CRM as a place to be able to evaluate the overall health and wellness of my business, be able to track not just my client relationships, but things that are happening operationally, just have insights into what is going on in my firm. And so as part of this follow-up, we'll send you some resources on how to take advantage of some of these features in your CRM and give you some ideas and best practices for how to, leverage these tools better and really get the most out of your CRM. One idea that I often see overlooked is templating the heck out of all of the repetitive things that you're doing. Here is an example of how you can take, the CRM as a task management system to the next level by templating all of the repetitive things that you guys are doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, okay? Think about like opening a new account, moving money, changing an address, depositing a check in an effort to not reinvent the wheel every single time a client calls in and needs something or shoots an email requesting some money. I want to have a template in place that I can very easily open up, see what's required from a custodial standpoint, plug in the details, task it off to my administrative assistant, or task it to myself to keep myself on track for how to execute on these things. Just really eliminate the, unnecessary reinventing every single time one of these things comes up. It's short-term pain for long-term gain. Take the extra couple minutes and document the process to eliminate NIGOs, back and forth with the clients, and just create consistency around all of the client servicing things that you guys are doing. Applying that same logic to the way we communicate with our clients. Okay. Whether you're solo or whether you operate on a team, I think this is applicable. And what I mean by this is, clean and consistent client service is what builds trust. And so just as important it is as it is in executing on service requests, the same thing is true in the way you communicate about your clients. I believe that excellent client service is proactive. I believe that the proactive communication is how you stay 2 steps ahead of your clients in whatever you guys are doing. And so I like to standardize the communication around all of the things that we're communicating with clients about, whether it's a complex planning topic or a follow-up on an action item or anything service related. I want to document my emails so that, well, one, I'm not having to dig through my email outbox and find the last best email I wrote about whatever it might be. That's a giant waste of time. Take the extra couple of minutes and document it as a template in your CRM so you have easy access to it. As you grow a team, let's say you're adding your first assistant, now they have access to how you guys communicate around whatever the topic might be, which is going to give them clarity and confidence to know how to communicate with your clients around whatever the said service, request might be. Which the ripple down effect then is now your clients know that they're going to get the same response. They're going to get the same answer from everybody on your team, regardless of who they talk to. And it's like, I don't know about you guys, but like one of the most irritating things for me is when I call a service provider and I get 2 different answers. Okay. This is how you mitigate that. This is how, you eliminate having to like dig through your email outbox. This is how you eliminate having to retype the same thing over and over again. And so it doesn't just create efficiency, it creates clarity and confidence, which is ultimately what is going to build trust in these relationships. And so now that we know like how the database is going to be organized, we've cleaned up our contact records. Everybody, is formatted now in a very clear, hierarchy with statuses and custom fields and tags and user defined fields. Okay, we've got that in place. Cleanup is underway. We now know, how to use the system for contacts, tasks, our sales pipeline, our calendar. Now we can take it to the next level and do the fun stuff, which in my opinion is building out your dream client service experience. And so I want to take you through how I like to think about this. And so I really want to put myself in the client's shoes and think about like, what do I want this to feel like from their perspective? And how do I add my own uniqueness and spin so that the service experience is really reflective of who we are as an organization? And so I like to pull up a spreadsheet and document it on is something as simple as this, starting with like who it is that we serve, the services you provide, and what you want this to feel like. And so when I think about qualifying these relationships, I go back to something that I stole from Michael Kitces years ago about how he says to qualify these relationships, you need to think about the 3 A's: AUM, advocacy, and attitude. Okay, AUM. So depending on the type of business that you run, you might talk about it like AUM, you might talk about it as revenue, but like there's a monetary component when evaluating these relationships. It's probably pretty easy to quantify, but like there's a monetary component and there's an emotional component. And the emotional component is, are they an advocate for your business? Because they might be, below that $1 million threshold, but they're a killer referral source. So you want to give them the Ritz-Carlton white glove client service experience, even though they don't meet that minimum, $1 million threshold. And then the last A is attitude. Do you enjoy working with them? Okay. We're going to take all of these things into consideration when we segment the book of business for the purpose of scaling our client service experience so that our top tier clients aren't subsidizing our bottom tier clients. Okay. And so once we've gotten clear on what the 4 tiers are, and there might be a 5th tier if you have a tax practice or retirement planning practice, but don't overcomplicate this. The fewer tiers, the easier it is to design this and to be able to really clearly differentiate each one of the segments. And so You need to think about like how many times a year are you meeting with people? How are you meeting with people? Are you checking in with them in between that meeting cadence to just like stay top of mind and provide value? And how are you checking in with them? Is it an email? Is it a phone call? Does everybody get a plan? How often are you updating plans? You get what I'm getting at here. I think one important thing to keep in mind is like how are we facilitating a meaningful relationship with the next generation of wealth. I imagine these folks, are going to be passing on their wealth to the next generation at some point. And so, how are you getting in front of their children or grandchildren in a meaningful way? How are we communicating things about rebalancing or celebrating holidays or birthdays, or they sell a business or they buy a business? Like, how are we celebrating those monumental events? I want to do that brain dump onto something as simple as this so that we have a document to like keep us accountable, to share with our team and provide clarity around like, hey guys, this is what it looks like to be one of our clients. This is the expectation around like how quickly we respond to everybody, what it looks like to celebrate these monumental moments in their lives. But ultimately, this is just a pipe dream until it's actually put into action with a series of checks and balances within your CRM. Okay, and so a couple of questions here. Yes, for those of you who have joined late, this is being recorded. We are going to give everybody a copy of this PowerPoint that we're covering today. Everybody will get a copy of any of the other resources that I'm sharing, things like the style guide, things like task management best practices, we're going to send to you in a follow-up email. So if you do need to jump a little bit early or want to share this with, a colleague, you are welcome to. I want to get back to this and just explain that once you've done the brain dump of what you want this to look like, we really need to create a system of checks and balances to ensure it actually happens. And you can probably see where I'm going with this, but the best way to ensure that this happens is by building out a proactive client service experience within your CRM. And so what that looks like is templates and reminders and emails and automation and workflows to make sure that like if the goal is to meet with people 3 times a year, that there is a proactive reminder in place to make sure that we're meeting with them or reaching out 3 times a year and leveraging things like online calendaring tools and automation to be able to do this, at scale. And so I want to take you through how to think about this and design this, because one of the other powerful things about going through this exercise is not just having clarity around what it feels like to be one of your clients and what it looks like to deliver on this, but it also is a very good indicator of what our workflows should be. Okay. And so a workflow, I always joke that like anything that's repeatable is workflowable. And then I heard somebody say, a workflow is anything done more than 3 times, it has more than 3 steps. And I'm like, yes, stealing that. So I challenge you to start thinking about anything you're doing more than 3 times that has more than 3 steps. Here are some very common workflows that we see investment management firms incorporate into their practice, okay? Opening new accounts, moving money, changing an address, someone passes away, changing an email, depositing a check, okay? And so one of the questions that I have here is like, well, what's the difference between an activity template and a workflow? Or like, when do you use a task versus a workflow? And so a task or an activity is stagnant. It's like a call to action. Hey, I need you to change a Benny. Okay, I can plug in the information that my administrative person needs to change the Benny, but like how you actually change the beneficiary is a workflow. It's a series of steps and tasks. It follows a chronological timeline. It has the ability to pass hands if there's multiple people involved in the process. It has outcomes where like it can come to a cross in the road where like if this, then that, and you take this path, or if this, then that, and you take path B. So a workflow is far more dynamic and is a much better articulation of like how to execute. Let's use the Benny change as an example. It's like, okay, hey, I need you to change a Benny. Here's the information about what, who the new Benny is. Here are some details about the conversation. These asterisks indicate within Redtail a native automation tool, which is pretty cool. So if I put in the Benny change activity template, it automatically fires off the Benny change workflow, which goes to the administrative person on my team first because she's responsible for putting together the paperwork. Okay. So it's got the details in there about what paperwork to put together. It has hyperlinks about where to find the documents. Okay. It's a pretty robust tool, which then tells her not just how to prepare the paperwork, but how do you send it out? How do you make sure you get it back? It's not good enough to just send it out. We do, in fact, need to make sure that we get it back. If we get it back, what are the next steps? If we don't get it back, what are the next steps? Oh, we need to follow up. Oh, and by the way, here's the email template for how we follow up. Okay, great. We got it back. Now what needs to happen? We got to submit it to the custodian. We need to save it to the server. We need to email the client and keep them in the loop and let them know that we're working on whatever we said we were going to do. Then we need to check back in and double check the custodian's work and make sure that, everything looks good. There's no fat fingers, mistyping an address or whatever before the client gets the confirm. And then we email the client to say, hey, client, I want to follow up and let you know that we've changed the bennies on these accounts. Here's what it's going to look like. You're going to get a confirm for the custodian. Please let me know if you have any questions. It's a pleasure to work with you. That is an exceptional customer service experience. That is the proactive communication that wows the clients, doesn't leave them wondering, and that is the customer service experience that they share with their friends. Okay? I really challenge everybody to start thinking through the things that they're doing more than a couple of times that we can start to document in a series of steps and tasks to help you be more effective, reduce, the potential of balls being dropped, reduce reinventing the wheel. Every single time one of these things come up, I sound like a broken record, but do yourself the favor. This is short-term pain for long-term gain. Your future self will thank you tremendously if you take the time to document the process. And when I'm talking about documenting the process, I mean design and write out the workflows on somewhere outside of the CRM first. We call this workflow whiteboarding, where you could take a whiteboard or you could take a Word doc or whatever and document the process outside of the CRM first. I don't care if you use Redtail or if you use Wealthbox. If you skip that step and jump straight to the CRM, you're going to be really bummed that you didn't take my advice, because if you start, rough drafting or brainstorming the workflow within the CRM, and then you need to move things around or things are out of order, or like you get your teammate's opinion on like, well, who should be doing this or what order. If you have to edit it for any reason, the CRM isn't super user friendly to be able to reorganize the steps and the tasks. So that's why I say build it out, in workflowy or on a Word document first, get really clear on what the process is, and then take it to the CRM and build out, the final version. Okay. And so I'm going to keep rolling here. This is another super repetitive process that deserves to have workflows to help, direct the process. So you're prospecting your new client onboarding journey. Libby Greiwe, if you guys follow her, she says that trust is earned in the first 100 days of a relationship. And I believe that. Okay. And so this is the first 100 days of these relationships. When someone calls in and says, hey, I've heard great things about your firm, I imagine you have some sort of qualifying phone call. Hopefully they're a good fit and we can jump into the discovery process. Maybe then we put together a plan. They're like, great, love you guys, would love to work together. We need to get the custodial paperwork going. How is that sent out? How do we make sure we get that back? Obviously there's money in motion now, which is incredibly sensitive and needs to be handled with the utmost care. How are we ensuring that is done seamlessly over and over and over again? And how are we staying 2 steps ahead of our clients as it relates to the communication around what's happening behind the scenes, so they're not left wondering and you're not beat to the punch with like, hey guys, I don't see any money at Fidelity anymore. I know you're moving into Schwab, but like, where's the money? That's an unnerving feeling, right? We need to stay ahead of that in order to build, a foundation based on trust and exceed their expectations. You need to document exactly what the prospecting and new client onboarding journey looks like. Here's a perfect example. And one of the questions that I want to answer here is, I do not believe that one long onboarding workflow works. I've never seen one written well enough that allows for the flexibility that you need in this process. I've never seen it not overcomplicated and convoluted and hard to follow, which is not a great way to get adoption. That's something that we're going to cover here too. There's a lot of questions here around, how do we get people to adopt these systems? You need to keep it really simple. You need to keep it really easy to use. And I have found that, breaking up your new client onboarding journey into individual meeting types allows for that flexibility. It allows you to go back. It allows you to jump forward. It allows you to skip a meeting, and just give the prospects the flexibility that they deserve in this process. It also allows you to leverage an online calendaring tool where we will mirror these meeting types in the calendaring tool so that you can create efficiency around the way you're scheduling these meetings, give the client service experience by giving them a more efficient, way to access your calendar. Not to mention like create contacts in your CRM, directly add the appointment to your calendar and automatically launch workflows. We'll get into calendaring solutions in just a second, but I think you get my point here. The point is do not create one long new client onboarding workflow. You need to break this up into bite-sized chunks into individual meetings to allow for flexibility. And then I wasn't, kidding when I said a workflow is anything done more than 3 times. It has more than 3 steps. Once you've documented the most important parts, of your business, prospecting, new client service, I want you to apply the same logic to all of the other repetitive things that you're doing. Billing, trading, reporting, compliance, hiring, firing, running payroll, maintaining your CRM, okay? Another incredibly important piece to keep in mind. It's not good enough to just set it and forget it. Build the system, clean up your contacts, think it's a one-time deal. No, there needs to be, eyes on your system ongoingly. Your CRM is going to be a living, breathing piece of your business for as long as you're ever in business. And somebody needs to take ownership of the system and make sure that contacts are staying well organized. Make sure that workflows are still accurate of your custodial, requirements. Make sure people are adhering to the best practices. There's no bottlenecks. If I were you guys, I would think about this the same way I'm explaining it here. And this, I really want you to take this as the roadmap for building out, your operating system, starting with your CRM. Get it organized, start using it for all of the, various functions that I explained, dream up your client service experience and start writing workflows to be able to deliver those services at scale over and over and over again with as little friction as possible. But at the end of the day, your CRM is just a CRM. It cannot be all the things. Even once you're like totally humming and you feel like an expert using Redtail or Wealthbox, at the end of the day, it has some limited capabilities. And so this is, once you have, built out this system, it is important to pay attention to continued friction points. And the friction points that I hear from advisors that are very well versed in their CRM is like, data gathering and form filling is still so manual and such a pain in the side. Managing client reviews, taking notes, documenting notes, all of this still feels so clunky. What do I do to solve that? There's got to be an easier way. And sure, there is. This is when, once you identify what the friction point is, let's use calendaring as an example. Man, scheduling reviews is so manual and such a pain in the side. There's so many back and forth emails. Great. That is a friction point and something that should be solved with technology. That is when you go to the Kits' Tech Map, okay? And you find the best in breed within their category. You do a couple of demos. You figure out which system plays nicest with your CRM first and foremost. And then you integrate it into your process. You optimize that tool, you template that tool, and then you integrate it into your process. I really like G-Reminders, especially for Wealthbox users. G-Reminders is an online calendaring tool, which, you can build out all of your individual meeting links and you can create all sorts of parameters and things and really create a controlled calendar that creates a lot of efficiency for your administrative team and for yourself as it relates to scheduling meetings. But like I said, it also will create new contacts. It'll link automatically workflows. It just creates a lot of efficiency on the back end. And also, I think, improves your client service experience because it eliminates unnecessary back and forth emails, gives them direct access to your calendar within reason, but is a great calendaring solution. Some folks I know are limited by their broker-dealer and have other restrictions and have to use things like Calendly. Fine, all good. It doesn't directly integrate with the CRM, but we can use tools like Zapier to do the same thing. I just, like to simplify things and use a single tool, but the same logic can be applied to Calendly. I'll preface this by saying I threw out a couple of examples here of technologies that our clients use and achieve tremendous results and create tons of efficiency and really elevate their client service experience. We do take a very tech agnostic approach to this initially, because everybody does have different requirements and different, there's so many different solutions out on the market. But I do think it's wise to pay attention to where things feel clunky and go to the tech map and figure out, what are the best solutions, vet those solutions, figure out what is going to check the majority of your boxes, and then integrate things like Precise FP for data gathering and form filling, Bento Engine for providing timely, proactive advice around they call the 15 age milestones that matter. I'm a huge fan of note takers. I personally have saved myself tens of thousands of dollars in employment costs, and freed up capacity for my team to be doing much higher value things than sitting on calls with me, taking my notes, putting in my action items, putting together the meeting summary, writing the follow-up emails, preparing meeting agendas. Jump is so good at that. And so if you haven't explored an AI note taker, I 10 out of 10 recommend diving into those solutions. And then automating as much as you can, whether you're using tools like Zapier or Redtail's native automation. If there's an opportunity to, like, if this then that, if I change someone from a prospect to a client, launch the new prospect or new client workflow, just anything you can do to reduce clicks over time equates to minutes and hours in your week. And man, what we could do with a couple more hours in our week. That is really the goal in all of this, is freeing up capacity to, whether you're running a lifestyle practice, having more time with your family, or coaching youth sports, or whatever it is that you want to be doing, or whether it's growing your business and being able to pour more deeply into your clients, or hosting events, or doing networking and prospecting, whatever that might look like for you. My whole goal here is to create a very simple operating system to help you better use your time for the high value stuff. And so when I think about this in terms of next steps, back in 2013 when I was starting this, there weren't resources like this available to us. And so I had to puzzle piece all of this together. And it took me years and years and years to put something together that actually worked. This actually works. And so if you want to DIY this, take these resources, take this outline and apply it to your business. Spend the next couple of weeks getting clear on how your database needs to be organized. Take the time to clean up your contacts. Take the time to do the research, and there's tons of online solutions available, or tons of resources available for you online where you can learn how to better leverage your CRM as the hub of your business. We've got a bunch of them available to you on our website, and just follow this, as a roadmap, step by step, to build your firm's operating system. And then if you want to kind of kickstart this and get some support and do this quickly, with a team of experts, we do offer a guided implementation program designed for firms just like yours, where we'll start by, exactly what I talked about here, assessing and uncovering the gaps within your CRM and your technologies, and create a custom roadmap. Or you partner with our firm in a guided engagement where, we practice exactly what we preach here. We start by doing an assessment, uncovering gaps, prioritizing fixes, and creating a custom roadmap specifically to your firm. And then we will help implement and design and customize it, to your firm's uniqueness, with, importing all of our templates, helping customize them, giving you all of our workflows and emails. You get what I'm getting at here. You'll have a dedicated partner on my team that will provide, weekly check-ins, make sure you're staying accountable, really just be your accountability partner over the next 12 months, provide you with all of our training, access to our community, tech recommendations. You get what I'm getting at here. But this is an opportunity to collaborate with my team and really see to it that we can remove bottlenecks, create a consistent client service experience, help give you guys the clarity that you need, and really support your long-term growth. And so if this is something that you would like help with, like I said, it is a 12-month engagement designed to fully implement and support your operating system, really tailor this to make it make sense for your long-term goals. It is $2,500 a month for the next 12 months. We have our next cohort starting at the beginning of January. That first full week, I think, is January 5th. If that is something that you are interested in, please save your spot here. We've got a handful of spots left for this particular cohort. We've included our contact information here too if you have additional questions. Otherwise, I am very grateful for everybody joining us today. I hope this has been valuable, and I wish you all the very best in starting this new year off with organization, clarity, and structure. So looking forward to keeping in touch with everybody. I will talk to you all soon.